Video games allow players to take control of all sorts of weird and wonderful characters, from the gruff and morally complex like Joel from The Last of Us and the cute and charming like Kirby, to whatever the heck Soul Calibur's Voldo is. However, despite the variety, sometimes players crave something new. A peculiar animal perhaps, or a coffee mug. Now there are plenty of video games which allow gamers to play as something weird for the entire runtime, but what if the player is only after a temporary thrill before jumping back into the usual action? That's where transformations come in. With transformations, players can take a break from saving the world to enjoy the little things, like rolling down some stairs as an apple, or terrifying all who gaze upon them as some nightmarish cauliflower-human hybrid. But where most games would grant the magical power of transformation to turn players into all-powerful dragons or werewolves, the following titles just decided to get weird with it. I'm the animate roll of toilet paper that was once Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 strangest things you can transform into in video games. Number 10. Were-tiger, altered beast. Werewolves are a staple of fiction for a reason. They look cool, can tear their enemies to shreds in seconds, and are a constant reminder of the fragility of the human ego and the ever-lurking bestial urges waiting just beneath the surface. Oh, and they make for great love triangle rivals as well. Werewolves just work, so it's no surprise there have been many variations upon the concept. Some, such as were-bears and were-rabbits, have come and gone, but none have been quite as disturbing as Altered Beast's Were-Tiger. The Altered Beast series began as a beat-em-up arcade game in which players pummeled their way through a fictionalized ancient Greece on a quest to save Athena from the clutches of the underworld. To aid them in their undead and monster-slaying duties, Zeus grants the player the ability to transform into powerful magical creatures: a dragon, a werewolf, a were-bear, or a were-tiger. Being an arcade game from 1988, all of the characters' sprites look a little janky, but the were-tiger comes off worst by far. Looking like a buff man in a yellow skin-tight furry suit, he definitely stands out from the crowd. Mechanically, the were-tiger works the same as the other transformations, somehow granting the player fire-based attacks, but emotionally, he will haunt your nightmares forever. And somehow, he gets even worse in Altered Beast 2005. Wow. Number 9. Bigfoot, Grand Theft Auto 5. After almost a decade of speculation, hoaxes, and teasing, Bigfoot finally appeared in a Grand Theft Auto game, and you can play as him. Back in 2004, when gamers first stepped foot in the bustling metropolis that is San Andreas, rumours began to spread. Rumours which spoke of a large, hairy humanoid stalking around the nearby woods at night. But while literally no legitimate evidence was ever found, it didn't stop people searching for Bigfoot, or hoaxing it with mods. Rockstar was clearly in on the joke, however, as with the release of GTA 5 came the first sightings of a Sasquatch in the mission Predator, where players can briefly see him among the trees if they position their thermal camera just right. But there's more. If players reach 100% completion, they unlock the mission The Last One. Complete that, and they unlock the ability to find a golden peyote. Peyotes are scattered all across the game world and allow players to temporarily transform into various playable animals, many of which could have made this list, to be honest, but the golden peyote is by far the strangest, as it allows them to become Bigfoot himself. As Bigfoot, players can do almost everything they could do normally, including driving cars and using dropped weapons, which makes for some truly hilarious scenes of carnage. It's just a shame the trip doesn't last longer, really. Number 8. Egg. Nobody saves the world. When asked to pick what they'd like to transform into in order to traverse a deadly dungeon, most people would probably pick something powerful like a dragon or a wizard, and most people would probably shy away from the inanimate. Indeed, most people wouldn't pick an egg. Nobody Saves the World is a top-down dungeon crawler in which players take on the role of Nobody, a pale, androgynous, literal blank slate of a character with a magic wand. This wand turns out to be incredibly powerful and is capable of transforming Nobody into over a dozen unique forms, from zombies and ghosts to mermaids and robots and more, each of which with their own special skills and abilities to help get through the dungeons and defeat the Calamity. Of course, there are also decidedly less useful forms players can take. These include rats, slugs, and, you guessed it by now, an egg. But despite being a fragile little egg that can shatter if rolled into a wall too quickly, this form might not be as useless as it initially seems. Its hardened shell ability means players will never lose more than 1/3 of their health when hit, allowing players to shrug off boss attacks that would otherwise kill them in a single strike. The egg can even be upgraded by cozying up in nests. Aw, cute. Number 7. Blobfish, Shantae half-genie hero. While it must be great being a genie, we think it must be twice as great being a half-genie. You might think the maths doesn't add up there, but sure, while you only have half the powers of a full genie, you at least have your freedom and aren't bound to a lamp forevermore. You could get up to all sorts of mischief. Luckily, Shantae, main character of the series that bears her name, only uses her powers for good, namely saving her beloved Sequin land from the nefarious pirate Risky Boots. Along with her magical hair, which she uses as a whip, Shantae has the ability to transform into various animals via the magic of belly dancing. These range from the useful, such as a monkey to climb walls and fit through narrow passages, or a harpy to fly, to the weird, including an invulnerable dryad that cannot move, or a pot that spits out gems, to the completely useless, specifically a blobfish. Obtained by buying the Obliterate dance, a very useful and powerful spell, and then trading it back to a shopkeeper named Tuki, the blobfish dance transforms Shantae into a very sad-looking pink fish. It can't swim, it can only bounce along, pathetically. Bounce just right though, and you may be able to do damage to an enemy by landing on them. Just don't bounce on any with swords, or you'll end up doing more damage to yourself. Ooh, ouch. Number 6. Jerry Can, Chia. Set on a peaceful archipelago in the South Pacific Ocean, a place of pure natural beauty teeming with wildlife and alive with sparkling blue waters, you'd think most players would want to get out and explore Chia's world and not sit in a shed somewhere as an inanimate object. Well, thanks to protagonist Chia's soul jumping ability, players of either disposition will be more than happy. Chia is a light-hearted adventure game in which players are given the freedom to explore a tropical archipelago by air, sea, or land, learn to play the ukulele, and possess the bodies of helpless animals. That last one sounds a little darker than it's actually portrayed in-game. Just don't think about what happens to the possessed animal's consciousness. And yes, Chia's soul magic is technically possession rather than transformation, but, you know, it's close enough. Well, it's close enough for me anyway, probably not for the comments section, but never mind. While the mechanic is primarily used to allow you to play as the archipelago's varied wildlife, soul jumping can also be used to possess inanimate objects. So, if you've ever had enough of exploration and just want to chill as a coconut, you can. You can even possess a jerry can and do little more than fall over or fling yourself at the occasional enemy. Jerry can, more like Jerry can't. Got him. Number 5. Milkweed, Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a weird game. It's dark, nightmarish, and punishing, but it's also weird. The initial macabre Gothic Victorian setting and monster design slowly gives way to the eerie and the obscure, and eventually some of the best Lovecraftian imagery ever unleashed on the unsuspecting gaming public. And it only gets weirder with the DLC. The Old Hunters DLC sees players venturing deep into the Hunter's Nightmare, a twisted reflection of the Yharnam players have grown to love, bathed in disquieting pale sunlight. However, it's just the first layer of something that maybe should never have been found. Venture deep enough and players will eventually find themselves in the research hall. In amongst the disturbed and disfigured patients is Sister Adeline, strapped to a chair, and if a player is kind enough to fulfill her wishes by bringing her brain fluid, she'll reward them with the Milkweed Carol Rune. Unlike other Carol runes, equipping this one in the Hunter's Dream will not only grant the player certain passive abilities, but will also transform their appearance. Into what, you may ask? Well, a sentient cauliflower. I mentioned it in the intro, and I wasn't making it up. Alright, technically it's a lumen wood, but with its oddly terrifying bulbous white head and root-like tentacles, let's just call it a cauliflower, shall we? I just hope no one boils me up with some potatoes. Number 4. Washing Machine, the Banjo-Kazooie series. Rare's Banjo-Kazooie series has brought fun and laughter to generations of gamers, and part of that magic was, well, literal magic. In both Banjo-Kazooie and its sequel, Banjo-Tooie, the happy-go-lucky protagonists must thwart the Wicked Witch Gruntilda's dastardly plans. Specifically, her plans to use magic to drain either Banjo's sister's beauty or the life force of the world. Fortunately, other magic users are happy to help Banjo, Kazooie, and the player in their quest, and of the many things they can do, transforming Banjo and Kazooie's appearances is by far the most entertaining. While most of these are your standard affair, crocodiles, bees, walruses, oh, hello Billy, others are a little odd. For example, a pumpkin, a submarine, or a washing machine. In Banjo-Kazooie, the latter transformation is merely used as a gag. However, if players complete all of Bottle's bonus challenges, they can unlock a cheat to play through the entire game as Washer Banjo. In Banjo-Tooie, the washing machine gets an upgrade. In this game, it's the transformation for the Grunty Industries level, and while it might look similar in design, this version has wheels for improved speed and mobility, and can fire Banjo's underwear at enemies to damage them. Talk about a clean getaway, right? Yeah, no, never mind. Number 3. Chunk of Meat, Super Mario Odyssey. Yes, alright, it's another case of possession, and another case of let's pretend nothing bad happens to the consciousnesses of these poor possessed creatures, but it's just so close to transformation that we couldn't help ourselves. And as a bonus, the possessee in question this time was formerly inanimate, so there's no suppressed consciousness to worry about. In Super Mario Odyssey, Mario's new pal/article of clothing, Cappy, is able to transform Mario's mind, body, and soul into anything it lands on. Usually this means players can stomp around as a T-Rex, fly about as a Bullet Bill, or disguise themselves as a Goomba. But in the lava-centric Big Pot on the Volcano Dive-In level of the Luncheon Kingdom, there's something far more bizarre waiting to be possessed. At the very tippity top of the plateau, encrusted in far too much salt, is an enormous chunk of meat. Throw Cappy its way, and suddenly, players are controlling said chunk of meat, except they only have one command available to them, the rather unsettling twitch. Twitching causes the great slab of meat to burst free from its salty prison, at which point a giant cockatiel will come and pick it up, and then drop it into a bowl of stupendous stew. Fun fact, according to the art book, it's actually a chunk of T-Rex meat. Yum. Number 2. Toilet, the Saints Row series. If the Saints Row series is known for anything, it's being crude. In fact, the games are so full of toilet humor that some even allow players to play as a toilet. Now you might think that running around and shooting bad guys as a porcelain potty might break the immersion of being a mob boss somewhat, but if you do think that, you clearly haven't played a Saints Row game. While the very first tried its best to be a good GTA clone, the second found its niche as an over-the-top parody of all things open world and pop culture, a nonsensical rollercoaster of gags, jokes, and references. While it doesn't always hit its mark, the series certainly knows what it wants to be. And so, if players finish Saints Row the Third, they can unlock the toilet skin. This doesn't simply dress the main character up in a toilet costume though, it literally transforms them into a sentient toilet. The more recent Saints Row reboot, while not being the most polished game ever, also brought back the toilet, allowing players to purchase the skin from the Everything's $1 Million shop for, you guessed it, $1 million. Seeing as money isn't too tricky to come by in this game though, it won't be long before you too can run wild as a carefree commode. And number 1, anything. Prey 2017. Why choose to transform into one strange thing when you can transform into almost anything you can see, provided it's non-living and at least slightly smaller than main character Morgan Yu? Mimics are small shadowy enemies in 2017's Prey, or Prey 2 if you want to get serious about this, which possess the ability to transform into any object in the game with uncanny accuracy. This means that any mug, fire extinguisher, anything might be a mimic in disguise, and trying to discern what's real and what's alien will drive most players to the point of madness. But while this ability is unnerving to be on the wrong end of, it's incredibly fun to take advantage of when the tables are turned. With the Mimic Matter Neuromod, players can highlight any desired object and, with the press of a button, instantly become a copy of it. This is great for solving puzzles. Can't get through a locked door? Well, turn yourself into a microscope and fling yourself through a broken window instead. It's also good for hiding from particularly tough enemies. They'll never suspect a bag of fertilizer. Oh, what's that smell? But never mind the practical uses, best of all, it just gives players the tools to be as wacky as they want to be. Have you long dreamed of role-playing as a banana, or flinging yourself around as a roll of toilet paper, or trying to dance in the form of a clipboard? Well, with Mimic Matter, the world is your oyster, and you can be an oyster too. I don't think there are oysters in this game, but never mind, it was a good gag.